Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg Shaped. And this is a unique pod. I sat down and had a great chat to our guest today over a month ago, and all was going well until his laptop charger gave up the ghost, and through various attempts didn't quite come off. We ended up swapping some WhatsApp messages and was delighted that he was able to come back and fill it in. So there's been a lot happening that month. A huge amount has happened in that month. So let's catch up with him again. You've heard part one with Scott Steele, Harlequin scrum half, and he's back for part two. So please welcome the one and the only Mr. Scott Steele. Hello, sir. How are you?
Oh, good. Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, good. You seem to have gone for continuity. I'm pretty sure that's what you were wearing a month ago.
I tried to do that to see if we were gonna how we were gonna do it, if we were gonna glitch it or not, if we were gonna do it. But yeah, first and foremost, apologise for the technical issues that we had last time. It was going so well as well, but no, we're set. No issues this time.
Nice. It was brilliant to speak to you. I loved it, and I thought a fair bit about it, and I was really, really pleased when you said there's still stuff you need to say. A lot of people are just desperate to get away from me, so thank you for that. So let's bring us right up to date. In the last few days, you've been under the knife. How's things?
Yeah, good. All in all, I had an operation on my hip, which has been a bit of an ongoing issue for my whole career, basically just managing it. But went on Wednesday to get an operation just to tidy up my hip. I've been having a lot of issues over the last 8 months or so with my back and my hip, and tried to rehab it, tried to do everything. Thought we were getting some wins. Would come back, play a few games, and then injured again. So at this stage, I'm just thankful that the operation went well, and that I'm looking forward to getting back fit and fully fit this time rather than just coming back for a few games. But no, actually surprisingly quite mobile and actually feeling really good post-op. So I'm excited to get back into stuff on Monday at the club.
When you say managing injuries, I remember somebody saying to me once that professional players are always playing with something. When you're managing something, how does that work? Are you working on everything around about it to support? Are you doing things on that specific area to try and just get as good as it can be? Is it in the back of your mind when you're playing? I mean, there must be so much that goes into managing an injury.
Yeah, all of them things. Like you're trying to, if you've got a weakness somewhere or an injury somewhere, you're trying to strengthen the areas around it to offload it as much as possible. You're working with the physios all the time, and you're also like in training, you might be restricted to what you can do. For example, with me, with my hips and my back, it was I could only do a certain amount of box kick a week. They would restrict my running meters, so I could only hit a certain amount, hit a cap before going into a game, and a lot of guys have that all over different positions. And the last bit that you said there, like it definitely does play in your mind if you're going into a game, and a lot of guys are quite sort of like strict in their prep, and they want to do a certain amount of hooker throws or kicks through the post or box kicks and stuff. And if you're going into a game knowing that you've not done as much as usual, then before you've started, you're probably more nervous than you are anyway, and then you're playing with an injury, so you're not going to be as confident. But like you say, yeah, I agree with that. Whoever told you that everyone going out there has got some sort of injury or something going on, or they're coming back from a major injury, and that'll be playing on their mind quite a lot. And yeah, I think that's something that probably your sort of general fan doesn't quite understand, that like these guys are going in and you should see the amount of strapping that lads have got before a game and stuff, and what goes on, and taking painkillers and stuff before games. Like it happens all the time. And then they might not have the best game, and you would see people getting a bit of stick or whatever, and you're like, if you only knew what they had to do to get to the stage of playing the game, never mind actually how they got through the game itself. But yeah, for me, that's something that I've had to deal with for like the last 8 months. Coming back from COVID, I've just been playing with bulging discs on my lower back. My hips been playing up. Not being able to play at my full potential. There was a game where I warmed up, I was meant to start, and then got moved to the bench, and by the time I came on after warming up, I couldn't get the range in my hamstring because of neural pain shooting down my left leg. And I was to the coaches, and it was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I just went on. I just couldn't. I didn't kick because I couldn't physically kick. And it was, luckily we were chasing the game, and it was like in a Prem Cup, and I was like, right, we're just gonna have to run everything because I can't box kick because my leg won't physically do it. Like, so stuff like that's just been so frustrating for me. And then had another flare up with that in pre-season, and my hip wasn't moving right, so my back was taking on more strain. So we did it, and I was meant to be on the bench when we played Sarries a few weeks ago, and then it happened again. Just in bed, and just had neural pain shooting down my left leg, and I was just going, oh, not again. So had another look at my hip, and they were like, right, we can do something about this, get this sorted. So did that, and touch wood, it'll be all good. But yeah, it's definitely one of them things that people don't really pick up on, that guys are playing a lot of the time with injuries and whatnot.
So here's, you get the operation and you feel that relief of physically, I'm going to improve here. That's going to give me a chance to play. But it sounds to me like there's a massive amount of mental and emotional going on there, that right now I'm going to be able to perform. I'm going to be able to train. I'm going to be able to give it everything. Literally a weight being lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's nothing worse than playing and knowing yourself after a game or a training session that you're coming off and you're going, that was nowhere near my best. Like, physically, that wasn't. I could have chased that harder. I could have done this. Technically, I wasn't getting into the right position, and like, you don't feel good about your performance, and you're just getting by. You start to accept that was all right. Like, that becomes your good because your body's not where you want it to be. So that's tough mentally to deal with. Like, knowing that if you were fully fit, that you could have a much better game, or you could be training much better, and you go from training in the week to try and get better as a player to just trying to get through training to be fit for the weekend, to then go out and not play as well as you know you can. It's very tough, like you say, mentally to keep trying to do that and back it up week to week. And at the same stage, like in my case anyway, my body was just getting worse and worse. So it became harder every single week. So for me, it's a bit of a reset button, get the operation, get it sorted, work on other parts around my game, and also stuff outside of rugby that I've got a bit more time to focus on now, and sort of figure out what I'd want to do after rugby. But yeah, it's a bit of a weight off the shoulders in terms of not just trying to put a brave face on every week and be like, no, I'm good to go, when you're not.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you, if you had a crystal ball, now that this is happening at this stage of the career, does it buy you another 2 seasons or 3 seasons, or have you never really looked that far ahead?
No, I think it definitely will. Like, that's what I've got done now will help me. It'll push my career a bit further back. But in terms of what I want to do next, I'm still unsure. I've thought about a lot of things. Spoke about before about refereeing, which my dad did. That was something that I've looked into and spoke to a few people about. Where I'm at with that at the minute, it was sort of the one thing that you give up as a rugby player is your weekends and your Christmas time and all that kind of stuff. And I think once I finish, I think like the things that I missed out on quite a lot, I think you want to be able to do them, and that's one thing that sort of pushing me slightly away from that, and also that it's still physically demanding. If you're battered and bruised after a long rugby career, the idea of that you're gonna have to still every week go out and run around and push yourself and keep fit during the week. Will the body hold up? That's the other thing. That's the question mark. But just doing a few courses online and stuff at the minute, hoping to go into London a bit more and do a bit more work experience in the city, and more than just, someone described to me really well. It was like, it's not about having something that you definitely know you want to do. It's about going in and trying stuff and then ticking that off your list, being like, that's not for me, or that could be for me. Like going into things that you wouldn't have a clue about and just saying, right, that's definitely not what I want to do. So the more that you can do, you can narrow it down, and then hopefully, like I say, over the next season, that I'll have a better idea of what I want to do.
Yeah. After you talking about the start of your rugby career, I've got no doubt whatever you choose, you're going to go for it.
Yeah.
Do you feel quite lucky to not be making that decision well, you made the decision at 16, 17, 18 to go and be a rugby player, but do you feel quite lucky about this stage of life now and being able to say those things? I can go and try that and do that and have a look at that and do that course.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like with the stuff that the RPA do, like the Players Association and the links that Harlequins have, like being a London club, like it's great for us. Like everything's on a doorstep. In terms of that, like other clubs all over the place have very good sort of connections with people to go and try and do that stuff, which is great. But I think obviously the transition is tough for a lot of people and they don't really know what they want to do. But for me, I'm sort of seeing it, like I'm presuming it will be tough, but also it's like another massive opportunity. Like there's not many jobs or careers that you have where you can do it for maybe 10, 15 years and then you can just do something completely different and then change it up. You're not doing the same job as you would be for a whole career. So I think that's something that there's a lot of things about rugby that I love, but there's also a lot of things that I'll be looking forward to seeing the back of once you do move on. So I think just figuring out what I want to do and what sort of lane that I want to be in terms of employment will help that transition be a bit smoother.
What did your old man say when you said to him you were thinking about refereeing? Didn't be so bloody silly, son.
No, he actually pushed it. He was like, I think you'd be good at it. Like obviously it's scrum half, like it's basically what you do anyway. You see everything in the game, you're telling the ref what he's doing wrong.
I was just going to say, I could imagine you being a good. I reckon be a sevens referee and get some of those nice holidays.
Yeah, you see that'd be ideal. But yeah, it's one of them things. Like I don't know if I'd want to be that involved. I'd like to still be involved in rugby somehow, maybe coaching and stuff like that. But probably not that level of professionalism. Like I've had that bit, I've done that. I'm happy to stay involved in the game because you obviously learn a lot. You've got a lot of knowledge being in the professional environment for so long that it'd be silly not to try and use that and help people out. But I think at that high performance level and that sort of high pressure, I think that's something that I'll be looking forward to not doing as much once my time comes.
You're obviously a very able sportsman. You're a brilliant footballer as a kid as well as rugby player. Is that something you'd look forward to, being a fan, a spectator, being in the crowd, going and watching different sports maybe, but getting back into football and being a rugby spectator?
Yeah, definitely. Like you take it for granted when you're sort of, because you're playing and you're involved in the team, it's not really the same as just going to a game and watching other professional sports and stuff like that, because you're so invested in it. It means so much to you. You're not just watching it and you can't really appreciate if the other team does something like unbelievable. You're not there going, oh wow, look at that. You're going like, oh Christ, like come on, let's like pull it together. So I definitely think, yeah, like from a very sporty family, like all sort of love all sort of sports and stuff like that, football. And when I was at London Irish, we were lucky enough that we got the owner had season tickets at Chelsea, and we'd go down to midweek games at Chelsea and stuff like that in the Champions League, and I absolutely loved it. Like just seeing them, like top professionals, how quick they were, how like agile, how tactical the whole game was. So that is definitely something that I'd look forward to once you get your free weekends again.
I remember speaking to a former professional who couldn't believe how much tickets were.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, that's something you try to get a hookup. You get messages every now and again off lads that used to play, and they'll be like, "Oh, you got any tickets?" And you're like, "Yeah, fair enough."
Yeah, got to look after the old boys.
Yeah.
So let's rewind the tape a little bit. We finished the last one where you just had that spell of being with Scotland and getting on the pitch and having that amazing experience, and we were just beginning to get into that. Off the back of that, a high, I think that massive high, getting to represent your country. What was it like going back into the club game?
I was excited. I was like, had a new confidence. I'd played played for Quins before, and then came back from the Six Nations stuff, playing in a different level, a higher level, and I was thinking I can't wait to get back and contribute. But at the same time, the whole way through my Scotland stuff, I was struggling with a hernia that again was getting worse and worse, and it was probably one of them that if it wasn't playing for the Scotland stuff, I would have said, right, no, I need to get something done. So I got back, and I think I played one game for Quins, and then it was just I couldn't play. I was injured. So so after that massive high, I've been like, can't wait to get back. The team's going really well. We'd sort of turned it around halfway through the season. I was like, can't wait to get playing in a team that's, you know, playing a different brand of rugby. It was really like, it's the Quins that you see now, really exciting. And then came back, and then to play one game and then be like, right, injured. I was just like, oh, here we go again. So went under the knife, got that sorted out. And then it was just one of them. It was frustrating because I was just sat there having played really well at the start of the year to get into the Scotland stuff, was in the Scotland stuff, came back injured, and then just really struggled to get, when I got back fit, really struggled to get in the team because it was, I think I played the last game before the semi-final off the bench. And it was just like, look, we've had this team for the last 6 months and you've not really been here. And two of the guys, so it was Danny Kerr and Martin Landaho, two like unbelievably experienced scrum halves, and it was just frustrating that I wasn't able to be there more and put my hand up for selection due to being away, and then due to the injury, and then just sort of watching that season unfold. And obviously it was an amazing day when we won it and we went to Twickenham, and it was unbelievable. But that feeling of just being like, sort of, I went away, then came back, and if I hadn't went away, I probably would have got the operation earlier on, and then all these sort of things going through my head. But I was just so happy for the boys that we obviously went on and win it, and it was such a crazy, obviously, semi-final and final the year that we won it. Yeah, it was sort of, I wouldn't ever say it was a bittersweet. It was just more frustrating from my point of view that I'd had the best year for me personally, and then coming back wasn't able to carry that on. It just sort of stopped all of a sudden. So that was quite tough, but it was made better by the fact that the boys went on and they won it, and then we had the best 3 or 4 days of our lives after it on the beers and stuff like that. So it was, yeah, it was a difficult one, but yeah, I wouldn't looking back, I wouldn't change it for the world now, because at that stage I was never expecting to be anywhere near a Scotland squad. So
who helps you with that? Who helps you with that? You know, massive high. I would imagine you were a pretty popular boy, and then you come back and you go back down to London Village. You go back to a club like Harlequins. You think, I'm ready to go, and then you have that. Who helps you with that?
The players, like, they know, like, experienced guys will come and speak to you and be like, where's your head at? Like, they'll share their, like, your frustrations with you. They'll be like, I can understand why you're feeling like that. And I think you never want to be that person in the dressing room that if it's not going well for them, then they're bringing everyone else down, because like toxic people like that, you do get them, but you never want to be that person. So for me, it was just, right, train as well as I can. You never know, there could be an injury, could be something. Just prep the boys as well as we could. And that year when we won it, I think that was the main thing. Like, everyone was so disappointed not to be involved in the semi and the final, that frustration just would show in the training. Like, everyone would be actually like tearing at the bit, and it would be so competitive, and we'd be like tearing through the first team, and it was like we'd scored a try at the weekend, boys are like celebrating, and like the guys in the first team are getting annoyed and being like, why are you being like that? But at the end of the day, it helps everyone, because they're being tested. If we sort of, like I said, we're a bit toxic and like threw our toys out the pram and we don't train well, they've not been tested, they just run through us, we don't defend properly, we don't attack properly, and it just makes training a bit, it doesn't make it like purposeful, it just makes it a waste of time. So I think the way that the boys channeled that frustration into doing something positive and worthwhile definitely did help us towards the end of that year.
Do you like training?
Yeah, like I said, over the last 8 months or so, it's been tougher, because when you're not fit, it's it's tough because the main event is obviously the Saturday, and when you start seeing training as being right, if I get through Monday, get through Tuesday, I get my day off on Wednesday, I can recover, and then all I have to do is get through Thursday, and I'm basically there. So when you start looking at it like that, it's quite daunting because you'll get through a session and you'll be like, if that session went on for another 10 minutes, I reckon I could have been struggling there, like proper injured or whatever. So, but when I'm fully fit, yeah, I love it. There's nothing worse than when you're being injured and you're just watching all the lads train. You feel like a spare part. You're just there like, but yeah, when fully fit, like I love it. If anything, they have to like, I'll be one of them guys that they have to hold back and be like, right, you've done too many meters, you've hit like 5K in this session, we can't let you go over because then you won't be able to train on Thursday because of risk of injury and stuff. So yeah, I love it.
When you're playing, are you aware of eyes? You know, the ones that are right in front of you in the crowd, but also that there's 50 TV cameras pointed at you and however many press photographers, or, you know, people talk about the zone. I'm just not quite sure I buy it all the time.
I think you are. When I first started playing and I made my Premiership like starting debut, I was definitely aware of that. Being like we played my first game, it was at the double header at Twickenham, so it was like 60,000 people there, and I was just going, what, this is mad, like, Christ, there's a lot of people here. I find my mum and dad in the crowd being like, right, good luck with that. And like in the TV and stuff, and you'd be like watching the highlights back and you'd be like really concerned about like, oh, if the commentators like said something, or if they've, even if like you've done something well, you'd be like, oh, well, I hope I get to see that in the highlights or something like that. Well, I think that just goes pretty quickly because like professional sport, it is just week to week. Like you could have the best game of your life one week, people talk about you for a few days, and then you get to the next week, you have an average game, not even a bad game, just a 7 out of 10, and no one's talking about you. And if anything, they'll be like, oh, I was really good last week, but it wasn't quite there today. And it's like, I didn't have a bad game. Like, I just had an all right game. It wasn't like, so with that stuff, that's what's so good about it in terms of, like, you can have the best game ever or whatever, but the next week it's start again. You like, it means nothing. Like, you can do so much in your career, but if you're not backing it up week to week, it doesn't really matter. And that's what, when you look at experienced guys that have done it for years, that's the sort of thing that you sort of really sort of admire about them, the fact that they've done this for so many years, but every single Saturday or match day they'll turn up and they manage to perform better than everyone else basically, and do it for so long. Like, surely you'd think at some stage you'd get to around like a Saturday, you're playing away somewhere, it's pissing down with rain, you're like, I can't really be bothered, but you never see that, which is, you would think that would happen more often.
When you're at a club like Harlequins, I mean, there's a lot of good players have come through Harlequins, but they've not been part of a squad that's produced this squad you've been part of.
Yeah.
You know, and there's, you know, Joe Marler is absolute box office. You got somebody like Danny Kerr, you got Marcus. I mean, you've got players there that everybody's talking about as, if not the best in the world in their position, the best in the British Isles. Or is that motivational? Is that intimidating? How do you work with that?
I think it's more motivational, and I think it's more of an opportunity. Like, you've got, like you say, you've got guys there that who are renowned as the best in the world in their positions, or like the best in Britain or whatnot, and we get to train with them every day. Like, if you weren't asking them questions about why they did this or why they did that, then like, you've wasted a massive opportunity there. And also just that you see that these guys, when they train, it's like, it's not like they just turn up at the weekend, are that good, and they're just like, oh, I'll turn up there and it'll be fine. Like, they like work as hard as anyone else. Like, I'd say Marcus Smith's probably the hardest worker that I've seen in rugby. Like, he is relentless. He's mentally in meetings, he's switched on, he's challenging the coaches, he's getting his point across, and then on the training pitch, if the standard's not good enough, he'll be telling people, and he's just worked great, and he's so competitive every day that you see him at the weekend and you're like, well, no wonder, like, he's that good. He works so hard at it. And for me, with having someone like Danny Kerr in my position, it's like, if he does something at the weekend that you're like, where's that came from? Like, how's he managed that? Like, he's came up with some sort of magic. It'd be stupid for me to sit there and be like, not ask him or get sort of annoyed that he's doing that, and it probably means that I'm not going to play the next week. It's like, well, do I want to come away from this being like bitter about that, or do I want to actually be like, right, well, if he can do that, I can ask him questions of why did he do that? What did he see? What was his cues? And then hopefully get better off the back of it.
I remember speaking to Stuart McAnally, and he was telling me that he's on a WhatsApp group called Edinburgh Rugby Hookers. And it's all the hookers, and they talk about their lineouts and whatever else hookers need to talk about. And that sounds similar to what you're saying, that sharing of information, let's make everybody better. Is that genuinely what it's like? They're the scrum halves sitting around having a cappuccino together and swapping stories, or is it just on the training field? How does it work with those positions?
I think it's, for us, it's more on the training field. You'll ask them, or after games, like reviewing stuff. So guys going through their clips from the weekend. There was a scrum half there that had played. I'd like sit down and like look at it together, or he'd like ask each other, what do you reckon here, or what do you reckon there? But it's interesting you say that, because I've noticed recently with younger guys that are coming through, they're very sort of quick to, they don't want to take advice as easy, in terms of they sort of see it as like that they don't know something, so therefore they're not as good as what they sort of want to be perceived, if you know what I mean. So I would go and chat to someone not in my position, in any position, and be like, oh, bit of advice, if you stay a bit squarer for longer there, like, you probably hold up the defenders and they can't shift off or whatever. And straight away it'll be like, yeah, but I was trying to get to this defender because then this, and they've already got, before they've even answered to what you've said, they've got something to come back at you. And it's almost like a defense mechanism. Like, I'm not saying that you're a bad bloke or you're a terrible person, but it's almost like straight away they're like, yes, but I've got this. And you're like, just listen first, and then you can come back and say whatever you want. It's almost, whereas when I was in the academy and stuff like that, it was, if anyone said anything to me, I would take it as gospel. I'd be like, yeah, 100%, yeah, whatever, yeah, you're right. And it would just be like, that's the way you learn. But because I think it's hard for guys that are sort of standout players in their school teams and their club teams to come into an environment where the step up's just another level, and they're used to being the go-to people, the go-to guys, and probably don't get coached as much as they should do, because the outcome's better. They might make a wrong decision, but physically they're better than the opposition, so they'll break a tackle and they'll go through and score, and everyone's going, what a try, where it's like, well, if you actually look here, that option was probably not the best option. But so for them guys, I think it is tough for them to go from being the go-to guy to the main guy in the team, to then start right at the bottom of the picking order basically again, and to take on advice with they're just not used to getting it as much.
You sound like you're still learning, and it makes me think that coaching's definitely something you can get into. Is there a moment where you had a, wow, I need to do that, or I need to stop doing that? Is there something from your career that you think that was a bit of a game changer for me?
I think watching your own games is obviously a massive way to get better, and to sit down with someone that's got experience, with just not even to coach you, just to be like, why did you make that decision? I think that's a key thing where, and if you're honest with yourself and you go like, I just panicked and went with that, it's like, right, well, we've got something there. Whereas if you went and you make something up like, well, I saw this, saw that, but if you're honest to yourself, like, you know why you do something. But in terms of one bit of advice, I remember we would do a drill at Leicester, and it was when the forwards are coming around the corner, and the 9 would pick up and take a few steps and try and sort of suss out what the defence are doing. And every time I got the ball, and would like sprint out as fast as I could, trying to get to like the second defender. If he jams on me, there'll be like a tuck option, like a little pop to a shoulder, or you just read the defence and what they do. And I did it, and I kept putting myself under so much pressure because I was running so fast to try and get the ball, get straight to this guy, and I didn't have any time to make a decision. And Ben Youngs sort of just took me aside and was like, look, like, you don't need to run as fast as you can to get out there. If anything, like, you take your time, and then if you want to have a snipe, you've got a change of acceleration. You've got to change. It's not like you're going full out and then just keep going. Like, it's not going to hold anyone. Whereas if you bounce out and then you sort of look like you're going to go, someone will change, your shoulders will come in or whatever, and stuff like that. Where I was like, I was too keen, I was too intense, I was too right. I need to do this, do it. Whereas he was like, just relax a bit. And he was always like, I don't know if he said it or it was another name, was like, you've always got more time than you think. And I always thought that, looking back at my games, everything when I was younger was so frantic. It was so, I've got to do this, I've got to do it now, like, no patience. Whereas take a step back, you look at your games and be like, I had loads of time to get that box kick away. Why have I tried to rush it and ended up falling back and it's went straight up in the air or went out in the full? Like, you're just like, you've always got more time than you think you do. And I was like, that's one bit of advice that I would pass on to other people and take into games. Be like, it just helps you calm down, be a bit more composed.
I love that Ben Youngs is giving you advice and it makes you better, but you're in competition with him. I think that's class. Is there ever a frustration when you hear, we were talking before we hit record about spectators commenting on things that they don't really know about? Have you ever had a frustration where somebody's told you what they think of a player, maybe their personality, and you thought, you don't even know this guy? Because I mean, social media is horrendous for making judgments on people. And is that something you've come across in pro sport?
It definitely is. I think a lot of guys get caught up in that, and they'll end up doing the worst thing that you can do. And after a game, they'll search their name on Twitter and go onto it, and they'll find things. They'll go looking for things that there's no benefit of. Like, someone could say, so and so, you had a great game today, and then you actually look and you're like, that person doesn't know anything about rugby. So even the praise isn't really that. Like, if your coach is saying you've had a good game and so are your teammates, that's the most important thing. Like, them two people, groups of people. But then if you go on social media, it's just anyone saying anything. So even if they praise you, it's like, well, they don't know anything about rugby or the game plan or what I was trying to do. And then worse, if you take on the bad bits of sort of feedback you get, again, of people that don't have an influence on anything that you should be concerned about whatsoever, it makes no sense. Like, you can't be just taking the good and then expecting not to do it. It's like, and then you do get people that they go more personal and stuff like that, and that makes me laugh even more. It's like, well, you don't know anything about rugby, and then you don't know anything about this, like, individual, and it works both ways. People will be like praising people for doing something when actually they've not actually done that much, and then the other way around, when someone's done something well, it's never good enough. So, like, I don't get caught up in any of that, and any sort of like going on Twitter. Or I remember back in the day, I would used to go on like the message boards and like fan forums and stuff like that after I played like an A-League game for Leicester and look at it and stuff like that. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, and I remember my dad used to do it. He wouldn't be able to get to all the games, and he'd be like, "Oh, they're saying on this that you had a good game," and I was like, "Dad, these people don't have a clue what they're on about. Like they don't." And like, I don't mean that like to disrespect like the average rugby fan, but like, you could watch a game as a professional and be like, why does he keep doing that? He's making the wrong decision. But all week that player could have been told that's what they're meant to do, and it's the other people around him that are letting him down by not doing their job. And so even when you're watching a game, you'll try to suss out what they're up to, and then like, someone could be made to be look quite silly for a decision they've made, but actually the guy that they were meant to go back to the short side with and pass the ball to is switched off, and he's not there. And everyone goes, "Oh, bad mistake," and you're like, you never know the whole story. So that's when that sort of stuff, where like looking online, or you hear fans in a game, if you're watching your own team play and the fans will say something, it's better just to go straight over your head and have a laugh at it, because there's no positive or any sort of outcome that's going to be like useful to anyone.
It does always surprise me, in that, I am on social media, of course I am, but when I see some stuff and I think I don't know that person, I don't know how you're able to judge it. It's one of the things that frustrates me. I think social media has got so much to offer, but it can be a pretty dangerous place.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the players that you share training field and changing room with are pretty big personalities. Is there open talk in a changing room about how people feel? I mean, it sounds like you've had some pretty good support from people. Is that something that you think's improving, or has it always been pretty good?
I don't think it's always been pretty good. I think at Harlequins we're extremely lucky to have an environment where guys can express exactly how they're feeling. I don't mean standing up in front of a whole group and saying it, but they would say it to so and so, and then he would pass on that he's feeling a bit down about this, and guys get around them, and like, and that's the whole squad. That's academy all the way up to senior lads, which is probably the difference. Sort of in other clubs maybe, or where I started, it was there would be support for some guys that would probably have done a lot for the club, and the club felt like they like to keep that person happy, that they would get around them and be supportive. But if you were more of a squad player or a younger lad, that you probably didn't feel comfortable of saying how you felt or what your frustrations were, because you probably just get the feedback that, oh, you're just moaning because you're not playing. It's like there's a difference between genuinely being frustrated at something or upset about something other than selection, but it would just link back to that. Well, he's just not happy because he's not playing at the weekend. Definitely in my academy days, it was very much just head down, get on with it. You probably wouldn't feel comfortable saying that because it's such a cutthroat environment, especially when you're younger. You don't know if you're guaranteed a next contract because you don't even know if you're good enough to be a professional player. You're sort of trying to battle with that yourself. So, but I think at Harlequins anyway, we're extremely lucky to have the sort of environment that we've got, that you could definitely open up to any other players or physio staffs or S&C. They're all really understanding.
Do you have a bit of chat with others from other like? Do people say, are they fishing? Like, what's it like at Harlequins? What's the changing room like? What's the, other pros? You've been to Leicester and London Irish and Harlequins, pretty, all big clubs, all with history, all with some big personalities involved. Are you, what's it like at Quins? Oh, I heard it's like this at Sarries. Is that true? Do you have chats like that with other pros?
Yeah, yeah, you do definitely. Like they'll like it's little things on social media. They'll see of other teams what they're up to and what Harlequins are doing. And whenever anyone asks me, like I can't praise the club like highly enough of the way they look after us. In terms of our training week, in terms of just little bits and bobs that they do around the club. Like quite often we'll have after training on a Tuesday, like a tough day or whatever. One of the girls that works with us, Louise, that helps serve the food, she used to run a bakery, and she'll bring in cakes like every Tuesday before a big session, and it just lifts morale, being like, right, it's going to be a tough session, but we get this treat. And then we go into the session, we've got like an hour window where we just sit down and she makes coffees as well. So it's sit there, have a coffee. You've got all these brownies and whatnot, all these treats, and it's just an hour where you just sat and chat to each other. It's not like you go and chat with him. It's just you sit there and you socialise, because the club and the coaches know that the relationships that you build are going to be the things that really make that difference when you really need in the final minutes of a game or in a tough time of a season. But like you said, with them conversations, if someone's not really feeling great, it's an opportunity for you to sit down with someone that you get on when you can have them chats. But they do that, and they'll bring in like food trucks for after training to change up, rather than just having the same sort of food. And like certain restaurants would come in, or big barbecues and stuff like that. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not like, oh, that's going to make you win the Premiership, but every week it will just give you a little lift. It'll change it up a bit. It'll make things a bit different. And and that's something that the club at Harlequins have definitely got right. It's just given a little, and the amount that you get back from the players, like it's you can't really put a number on it because it goes a long way.
What was it like having the TV cameras following you around for the documentary? Was that intrusive? Was it quite cool? Did you ignore it?
They didn't want anything to do with me in any of it. I was sort of being there like, "You alright? Are you guys doing that thing?" "Oh, right, leave it, fine." But no, it was actually, I think the way they did it was really good. Like, at no stage where you're like, "Oh Christ, they're there." It was like, sort of seemed like they were just sort of in the background, didn't sort of interrupt training in any way or any sort of meetings or whatnot. And the way that they did it when they took guys off from sort of different stages of their career or sort of different sort of like starting points of like where they came from, I thought was really, really good. Usually, if you do one of them or you watch one of the interview sort of things, it'd be like you get the big dogs that everyone wants to see, of course, but they would pick up lads from the academy that have came in and played loads in the first team, or guys that are still in the academy that haven't quite kicked on yet. And I thought the way they did that and they interviewed a very sort of different sort of age range throughout the whole squad, I thought that was really smart.
No, it was cool. I enjoyed watching it. I really enjoyed watching it. Scott, yeah, I've taken up a huge amount of your time, and I love talking to you. I think you've got so much going on, and I think you're an amazing role model. I hope you get more chances to tell your story. The thing I miss about playing, and I obviously never played to anything like the level you played. The thing I miss about playing, the thing I miss about being a coach in the club game, is the changing room. What happens at training is kind of the same. What happens between the whistles and the white lines is kind of the same. But the bit I don't think I can ever replicate is what happens in a changing room. Now, life's different now. I wasn't around when mobile phones and social media really were part of a changing room and clubs needing to put out content from a changing room. But is there a moment in a changing room where you probably didn't at the time, but is there a moment you look at and you think, I would love to have had that again? Like that was special.
Are you talking like after a game? Like
after a game, before a game, half time,
yeah.
the anticipation, just where you have been in a changing room and thought, this is a moment I would love to put in a bottle and smell every week.
For me, it would definitely be the game against England down at Twickenham. Just because everything that had sort of went on and the uncertainty of a lot of things, the likelihood of me ending up in that position and coming on and contributing, not just getting chucked on the back row or playing on the wing. I was actually in my position and played well. We managed to win the game and stuff, and it was it was pretty emotional. It was great because like that's everything you've ever sort of dreamt of is beating England at Twickenham. And because there wasn't any fans there, the changing room felt like there was like people would usually be out and about saying hello to everyone, but there was none of that. So everyone was there. Everyone, like no one missed anything, and we were just there and just to see people that you'd like the coaching staff and all that kind of stuff, like how much it meant to everyone. I think that was the thing that that was really special about that night and how it was just that's the whole reason everyone's there. And then when it works out, like it's just great to see. Like you're talking from, kit man, like physios, team manager. Everyone wants the team to do well, and when the team does well, you sort of see like how much it means to everyone and like all their hard work that they've done behind the scenes and stuff like that. It just felt like such a tight knit group probably because of the COVID stuff. Like we had to be so together. There wasn't guys coming in and then going home. It was built up for a long time. So I think that everything involved in that made that changing room experience so much. It made it more personal to everyone. I thought it was unbelievable.
Scott, I just find it amazing. You could have picked holes in that and said I was, there was no crowd, there's no, but you've absolutely found the positive in that situation, and you've been like that all the way through, and everything we've spoken about. I've absolutely loved it. At the end of these, I ask you to finish a sentence, and I think I possibly told you this about a month ago, and you'll have forgotten. So I need you to finish the sentence. So for you, Scott, happiness is?
Happiness is. It can be anything, not just rugby.
Anything at all. For Scott Steele, happiness is?
Friends and family for me.
Friends and family. Back up the road.
Yeah. The Dumfries massive.
Brothers around the table.
Yeah. That bit for me. Sitting down, good time, friends and family. Can't beat it.
Nice. I love it. Mate, I really appreciate it. I hope everything goes well with the rehab and the recovery. I hope you get back into it. I'm desperate keen to get down the road and come to Quins with my big mate Sean to come and cheer you on. Just you get back fit. I'll save it for when you're back.
Nice one, yeah. No pressure.
All the best, Scott.
Cheers, appreciate that.
Thank you. I absolutely loved that. What a guy, and amazing. I mean, it didn't quite work at the end of part one, and he said, I'll come back. And we've just spent over 40 minutes chewing the fat, and I think there's so much there to offer. I hope he does stay in the game, but I'll understand if he doesn't. He's given a huge amount physically, mentally, and emotionally, and I look forward to see what he's going to do, because after his career, I've got no doubt whatever he throws himself into, he's going to do bloody well. Good guy, good person, great role model. If you've enjoyed it, you can listen on Apple, Acast, and Spotify. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. If you enjoyed it, tell your friends, leave us a review. A bit like Scott was saying, I do actually read them, so leave the positives. And if you've got nothing nice to say, just don't bother. Just give us nice things. And if you didn't enjoy it, that's okay. That's okay too. I've absolutely loved speaking to him, and I'll be back with more. My name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. Until the next time, look after yourself, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you.